morning, everyone. What's happening? This is Danny K, your lovable host at SonicFlare. Thank you for tuning in. If you are here for the very first time, SonicFlare is our channel dedicated to music, how it connects with hi-fi, and how hi-fi connects with high-end audio. And one of the topics that is very, very near and dear to me, because primarily my record collection consists of records. I probably have in the order of 10,000 records at this point. And, you know, one of the things that I always was very, very adamant about was cleaning the records, preserving them to achieve better sound quality, right? I mean, there's nothing worse than, you know, you come home from a binge buy at your local swap meet or record store. You bought a couple of awesome records that you cherish, and you're like, oh man, this was phenomenal. This Gil Evans or, you know, Bill Evans or, you know, Miles Davis record that's, you know, 40, 50, 60 years old. You bring it home, you put it on, and you're like, it sounds dreadful. It's awful. It's noisy. It's dirty. It's filthy. What do I do? How do I improve the overall quality of the record? And then obviously, how does that translate into improved fidelity and increasing the sound quality of the record? And so there is a gentleman that I want to introduce you guys to. And before I do that, I want to make clear this is not a sponsored video. This is not a pay for play video. This is a bona fide me telling you guys about this gentleman and his company and his service that he provides, because I firmly believe that this is the single best process to increase the fidelity and sound quality of your records, whether they're new, whether they're old, whether they're in between, whether you inherited them from someone, bought them, etc. And we were introduced by our mutual very good friend, Shane Butner, of course, otherwise known as Intervention Records. And ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure and a delight to introduce you to Steve Evans and his company, Perfect Vinyl Forever. The process that he created, that he invented to preserve records and to improve the fidelity of the records has made me a complete believer. And I've sent him probably several hundred records by now to get through his process. And so without further ado, Steve, how are you, my friend? Good to see you.
Doing great, man. This is awesome. We've been talking about doing this for like 9 months now, and it's great that we're finally.
Oh my
God. It has been. Yeah, so
wow.
It predates SonicFlare, right? When Shane,
That's
Shane
right.
connected us.
Yes.
And you sent us some records. We sent them back, and I remember what you wrote back. You're like, "Oh my God, what did you do to my records?" And then there was a pregnant pause, and my heart rate elevated because that could go either way, right?
That's true.
You're like, I never heard him sound like this before. And then I could breathe again, and we started making connection.
It was this very record, Benny Maupin on ECM, The Jewel in the Lotus. And this is the first record, or among the first records. I think it was a 16-pack. Or what 16 pack that I sent you. Yep. And here's what's funny. This is the embarrassing part about it. So Shane told me about you probably more than 2 years ago. Shame on me for sitting, and you immediately sent me a pack. You're like, hey dude, you know, I'd love for you to try this out. Send me your records, no charge. I just want you to experience this. And I was like, you know, I've heard this before. I've seen this before. Obviously at hi-fi shows, you know, there's everybody selling some kind of a gizmo. And finally, I think, and this is embarrassing. I mean, I was cleaning out my office and I saw the box. It was standing next to me this whole time. And I was like, you know what, dude, I got to send 16 records to Steve Evans. And as you say, the rest is pretty much history. I mean, when I got them back, my expectations there were no expectations, literally. Sure. I have an ultrasonic cleaner, KL Audio, unfortunately no longer in business. I started off with that German machine that was very unreliable, unfortunately. had to get replaced several times. I ended up with the KL audio based on, feedback from friends and folks that I know. And everyone said, dude, this machine is going to rock your boat. You're going to love it. And so for me, I was like, okay, I have the KL audio, which is already the best machine you can get, a consumer can get their hands on. How much better can you really make it? I mean, come on, right? And boy, when I got those 16 records back, I mean, this is no joke, the fidelity was so much better than what my KL audio was able to produce. And I frankly, I was hooked, right? I mean, it's, to your point, I've sent you a couple hundred records now. So, Steve, tell us, like, what's the magic? What's going on here? Tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background?
Sure.
How did you get into this? What's the scoop?
That's a story. Well, I got into it because I wanted clean records. And at the time, I was looking at getting a KL audio, but I couldn't justify the entry point. I mean, it was a substantial investment to get that device.
Yeah.
My system would have benefited by investing elsewhere to get sonic improvements, as opposed to, what was it, about a $3,000 machine, $4,000, something like that at the time. So I didn't. But I was doing a little bit of DIY hi-fi tweaking and building and things of that nature. So I started investigating, what is the ideal machine? What is the ideal process? And my background, my career background is in an automation, whether it's industrial or building portfolio, et cetera. I've spent my entire career in automation, which is interesting because it combines electronics, electricity, physics, and chemistry and process, which is exactly what I use to create the equipment and the process that is now Perfect Vinyl Forever Archival 3.0. So I started the company by wanting to build my own equipment. And I looked at my collection of records, which was under 2,000, and I'm like, it's gonna take me forever to clean these things. So let's figure out how I can clean more records. Well, then the next step was I was at a record swap. And I was walking around the booth and I'm like, hey, this could be a fun little thing. I build my machine, I bring it here, I charge people to clean their records before they go. And, I'd have a reason that I'd have more play money that I could spend on more records and equipment, right? That was the true motivation for me starting this whole thing.
Love it.
Well, as it turned out, this blind squirrel did find a nut, and my process really worked, and my machinery really worked, and people really like it. And fortunately, I was able to meet some mentors in the industry early on. One of which is John Spelt at Ultra Fidelis, a local high-end dealer. He kind of shepherded me through the industry, got me connected with some of the right people, helped get the word out. And then, 4 years later, here we are. We've had several iterations and evolutions of each one of our pieces of equipment in the process. We've gone from our original release all the way up now to Archival 3.0. So that's 3 significant improvements along the way. And we continue to build our customer base. It's a really great entry point. It's a way that I can contribute back to a hobby that I have been involved with ever since I was in my mid-teens.
Yeah. I got to be honest with you, kind of pivoting back to my earlier comment, which was, you have, or someone or whoever's watching, they have a cleaning machine of some kind, and they recognize the value add of, hey, you got to clean these records, even new ones, right? I mean, I think where it really struck me was I figured that, okay, based on my experience, you got to clean old records, obviously, but new records have all kinds of gunk and goo in them from the pressing plant and the pressing machine. Right. And so it completely astonished me, to be perfectly honest, how much more of an fidelity improvement I received from new records that I sent you, that really kind of like rocked my boat. I was like, wow, this is incredible. And in fact, I've done the comparisons of, I bought 2 records, identical copies. Well, we know that they're not really identical, but let's leave that out of the equation for now.
Yeah.
And I sent you a copy and I received the copy back, and then you play them back to back, and it's like, wow, what happened?
Yeah.
You know, what's the magic there? What's your perspective on that?
Oh,
How is
so
it improving the fidelity so much?
and you send us incredibly good records, as your viewers already know. So it's not like I'm improving some run-of-the-mill pressing by some random plant. You're sending us beautiful records.
One
So
Steps, Patricia Barber,
yeah,
Impex.
absolutely.
I've sent you a couple of
UHQRs.
UHQRs. Absolutely. I've sent you Mobile Fidelity, One Steps. You're absolutely right. I mean, it's not like, you know, oh yeah, you know, these are just some willy-nilly records I found, you know, let me send them to you. This is, you know, this is high-end stuff. I mean, the records are considered the finest, best, et cetera, in the industry. How in the world are you able to improve upon that?
So first of all, I want to say it's not due to any fault of the pressing plant or the process. When I talk about how we improve records, and I get questions from people, why can't record plants clean records once they're done so I don't have to clean them? That's not feasible, folks. Mm-hmm. I mean, these guys, pressing plants need to make so many records per hour, and they already are fairly expensive. You know, they're a significant investment for us. To then add a lot of time and labor to clean them and then send them out, it's just not practical. And not everybody appreciates it. But for those who do, how we've been able to improve upon the processes you've been able to develop in your home and the equipment you've been able to use is we can take each contributing factor significantly further than you can realistically do at home. Yeah, you know, I've got a water purification plant in my processing area. That's not feasible for somebody else to do in their home. Wow. So you know, and in every step, whether it's the chemistry, whether it's the equipment, the physics involved, I'm able to do it because I need to create just a couple of machines. I don't need to create machines that need to be distributed, sold, serviced, and mass produced. Which also allows me to do continuous process improvement. That's why if you were an early Perfect Vinyl Forever adopter, the records that I cleaned with our 1.0 process, we re-clean them again, and you'll have significant improvements with our archival 3.0. Now, the reason we're able to make these improvements is this is PVC. I think we're all quite familiar with that. It's hard, it's inflexible, and if you put this under 350 tons and several hundred degrees to press it into a record, it's not going to work well. So what they do is they add to the base polymer softeners. Think of them as waxes and oils that makes the biscuit pliable. And when you press them between the stampers, now the vinyl can pick up all those intricate details that we hear as accuracy, that we hear as natural sound. However, when you subject any compound material to heat and pressure, it tends to break away from the base polymer, right? So what happens is during the normal process, you get this skin. Think of it as a layer of skin on top of the record that can be carefully removed, and it now reveals like the infill of the groove. So you literally, I think you can orally support this, Danny. I think, you know, we are providing higher definition records because the stylist can actually track and retrieve more information when you get those soft compounds out of the very, very tiny details of the groove.
So like you said, it's like you're literally removing that layer, and it gets, you know, it gets removed, and to your point, the needle and the stylus is able to trace the groove as it was originally intended, so to speak, minus the gunk that it kind of would have to go through to get there. Is that kind of like, do I understand that then correctly, or?
You do. You can think of it this way also. I'm sure you've heard lacquers being played on a turntable, right? We are taking pressed vinyl records and bringing them sonically closer to playing an actual
lacquer. Interesting.
But it doesn't have the fragility of a carved lacquer disc. It's still got the very, you know, durable properties of pressed vinyl.
Yep. So one other thing, and I'm, I love your setup. It looks incredibly professional, minus the lab coat. Thank you for not wearing a lab coat. Thank you. I tell you, and one thing I learned in high-end audio is if you run into a guy that's wearing a lab coat, run.
Exactly.
Run. No good things will come of it. Trust me. Anyway, so thank you for not wearing a lab coat. That said, I'm looking at your environment, your setup, and this is not a fly-by-night operation. I mean, I'm looking at equipment that costs substantial money. Meaning, frankly, I don't know how much it is, but I can only imagine it's expensive. You've got a dedicated room, you've got a dedicated office setup for this. What's like, walk us through the process, maybe, since you have these different video angles of what step by step happens when I send you a record. What's the process?
Sure, that's a great question, and we'll step through it. So when you send us the records, first thing to note for your viewers, you keep the jackets, inner sleeves, and outer sleeves at home.
Yeah.
So when we send you, a mailer, we will include 16 inner sleeves for transport. We have purpose-built mailers.
Yeah.
The mailers the records are encapsulated in 1 inch of high-density foam. Yeah. And then we provide record protectors to go between each record. You package them up, you send them to us. First thing we do is, before they are removed from the package, we sign in every order, and we sign in the records, to our individual record carriers, the spindles. Okay, wow. They're all color coded. So we have had a 0 defect, 100%, no excuses track record of not mixing up or losing records on our clients' behalf. So once we get them, we load them on our carrier. Now, our carrier is interesting, and it's one of the keys to our success. We are able to completely seal the inner label from any kind of cleaning solutions with these spacers that have O-rings on them. It sits right outside of the dead wax. So once we finish taking your records out of the sleeves and putting them on a rack, then we can completely submerge us with complete safety into our cleaning solutions that are part of the Archival 3.0 process.
So so essentially that whole stack literally gets submerged in your process.
That's correct. So
wow.
These are the tanks, the soaking tanks. I'll
wow.
turn it to this camera.
Wow.
And yeah, they will be completely submerged in this cleaning solution.
Wow. That's incredible.
So that is one of the keys, and I'll point out some of the differentiators as we go, Danny, as far as why we can get better results. When you clean anything, soaking it in the proper solutions always yields better results. And because we keep them in each step for 10 minutes. So our first step is our archival process that will help with sonic improvement. The second step, the cleaning solution is formulated for noise reduction, surface noise reduction. So after we do rinses between each one of those steps, we're already now 20 minutes into the process. Then these records, I will turn to this camera, these records are loaded in our ultrasonic cleaning machine.
Wow. Gosh, look at that contraption, man. Looks like a sci-fi flick.
It is in some regards. Hit a button, and now we have a completely automated machine that is filling up the tank. It will soon start rotating the records at a very, very slow speed.
Yeah.
And then it will start our ultrasonic generators. You can see we have our full automation dashboard above. I'm not sure how well the camera's picking that up, but it shows me the status of the equipment, the status of the product.
Wow. Did we lose you? Steve? Hello.
Oh, shoot, I'm here.
There we go. All good. No big deal. Carry on.
Yeah. All right, as I was. So then we move it on to our ultrasonic rinsing step, where we have ultra pure water. And then we
Wow.
also, our ultrasonics are different too, Danny. We run 135 kilohertz in our cleaning tank, and we run 220 kilohertz in our rinsing tank. And we can do a separate segment on ultrasonics and what they mean and how they're important, and what factors to understand at a later date. But that's another differentiator.
Wow.
After we move it from the ultrasonic cleaning steps, they go into our triple filter dryer. Where we safely dry the records for another 10 minutes.
Wow.
And then after that, we take them out, we put them into brand new sleeves.
Yep.
With a data service sticker on them.
Yep. Love it.
And then we ship them back to you. So you now have, after 50 minutes of running it through our process, you will have your records back, and they will sound as good as they can possibly sound. And that includes brand new records and also legacy older records that have had a bit of a, let's say, experience in this world.
Yeah. Wow. That, I mean, without a doubt, way beyond what my KL audio machine can do, or for that matter, any other machine that I am aware of on the consumer market. It definitely looks like this is a process that, you know, obviously, you know, you didn't come up with this overnight. This is something that you worked on, perfected, hence the name Perfect Vinyl Forever, I guess,
right.
To allow that process to continue to get better and better. And I love how, you know, over the course of your 4 years, 5 years that you've been doing this, you know, you started with 1.0, then came 2.0, and now you're at 3.0. And each succinct generation improves the fidelity even more. And so I'm presuming that at some point when you come out with 4.0, I'm going to have to send you back my 3.0 records to get redone for 4.0. But I mean,
but that's an interesting point, Danny. Maybe I expand on that for a second.
Yeah.
The nice thing about our service is if you care for your records and handle them carefully with just standard handling practices, it's a one and done proposition. You don't need to send us your records every 20 plays. That wouldn't be high value to the clients. Now, as far as upgrading your records, that's a thing. I recently upgraded one of my local clients. His entire collection was previously cleaned. He heard the results of 3.0, said, just let's do my entire collection again. And we did that. We turned it around in a couple of weeks. That was great. But he definitely heard an incremental improvement in the sound quality of his record. So it was worth for him to reinvest. As far as everybody else, you know, if you're looking at a rack of records, you have 10,000 records. I would love it if you sent us everyone, but over time. But realistically, start with your top 64 records, and then do your top 10%. And then maybe consider going to your top 25%. And then see where you want to go from there. Same thing with re-cleaning with improved processes in the future. You know, you may want to consider just taking your top 10% and having them perfected by us.
What, you know, how often do you deal with skeptics? Just
all the time.
All the time.
All the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would think so. What, like,
and I love skeptics, right? First of all, I don't wear a lab coat because I run a service company, right? I'm not a physician. I'm not a chemist. I'm not a chemist. I run a service company, and I don't need a lab coat. But if you think about this, in hi-fi, there's very few opportunities for service-based companies, right? Most of it's a buy-sell environment, which there's nothing wrong with that.
That's a good point.
So with that, you know, we're able to provide this continuous improvement to our clients. We're able to constantly give them greater value as we go through. And the value is in our outcomes, you know, and the time that we save you. I mean, think about that. If you invest in a record cleaning machine, which to get a decent one is substantial, and then you factor in just a a modest amount of money as in your leisure time dollar per hour, for instance. If you value your leisure time at $10 to $15 an hour, I can make a financial case that it's more cost effective to send us your records and have us clean them for you.
Without a doubt. I mean, look, I think one of the things that for me personally, I try to get to clean my records as they come in. Frankly, even with the KL audio, the noise level, and I do not have the fancy, what do you call it, noise suppression box that they built for it. To your point, I don't even have I think they made a 5-disc changer.
They did, yeah.
Our buddy Chad Kassem has one of those contraptions.
Cool.
And of course, now that they're out of business, I'm not ever going to get to that anyway. But even so, I look at spending, 15 minutes on a record to clean one record. And, I send you, and by the way, one of the things that I want to point out, I think, which is brilliant, the turnaround time is frankly unbelievable, considering that, I'm sending you 16 or 32 or however many records I'm sending you by mail. Well, in my case, I'll send him FedEx, but same thing. I mean, it takes a week to get to you. The turnaround time is super efficient and quick. I mean, it's pretty, the value add, I guess, to your point is, clean one record. It's not going to be as good, or send them to you. Fine. I won't have the record for 2 weeks or so, but when they come back, boy, do they sound better. And I mean, right. It really, I think, as I mentioned earlier, it really struck me when I sent you brand new records that you were able to increase the fidelity at the level that you did, vis-a-vis when I send you, an original copy. And by the way, I do have to say, I love how you develop that process with that suction cup for the labels. When I send you an original, when I send you something, electric recording company, right, where, dude, if this thing gets mucked up, it's no good for either of us, right? And I have to say, I have yet to run into any issues with your service, and it's staggering considering how many records you get in. There hasn't been one hiccup at all. I mean, it's amazing. Your logistics are definitely your cup of tea, without a doubt.
It helps. We have a very good track record. We also carry a $1 million product liability insurance policy.
Wow.
You're probably not going to get that from the guys in the lab coats on their little record cleaner. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, this is different in the industry. It's a service company, Danny. So we really need to make sure we're at service. I want to circle back to a question that you asked that I didn't actually answer, and that is one of skeptics. Yeah, I love skeptics. Honestly, I do. We set, I think, a pretty high expectation of the results that we can send to you with your records, and by almost any circumstance, we've lived up to those, and that is reflected by the number of people that are repeat customers. I mean, we have a repeat customer metric of about 70%, and that's fantastic.
Wow. For service, that's huge.
That is huge.
That's incredible.
But for skeptics, here's a note to skeptics. Where else can you try?
Hang on, put your lab coat on. Quick, put your lab coat on.
Where else can you try something like this, where we're making, I'll admit, somewhat fantastic claims for $150 shipping including, right? Put us to the test. Send us your records. We'll clean them. You listen to those very same records on the system that you already know. This is as about a controlled experiment as you can participate in for a fairly nominal upfront investment. And you tell us, do your records sound like you've done a substantial upgrade on your cartridge or your phono stage or your turntable? That's the exact feedback that we get from many of our clients. That's the type of expectation we're willing to set. And we're also willing to take it one step further. And this is the first time we've announced this, Danny. So you're getting a scoop. We're going to be at AXPONA again this year. But instead of being in the exposition floor, hawking our wares with everyone else, we've stepped up and we got a listening room.
Wow.
So we won't have our equipment there, but what we will have is a nice, but by AXPONA standards, a fairly modest system.
Yep.
We will have 2 identical turntable setups going through the same identical preamps into a common system.
Brilliant.
I will play one record that is factory fresh. I will play the second record that we cleaned with our archival process, and you will be able to hear back to back. Heck, we could do it within the song if you wanted to, the differences in sonic improvements.
Genius. Oh man, that's brilliant. Wow.
Not many people are willing to put their claims to the test in real time at a big trade show like AXPONA, but we are, because we're all about the results.
Yep.
Service, safety, repeatability, and high perfect results. So what better way to test it?
I think so. First of all, love it. I've always been an advocate for put your money where your mouth is, right? I mean, you could talk all day long with a fancy PowerPoint presentation or keynote or whatever, fancy pictures, molecular biology analysis paralysis, super high def, microscope pictures of the grooves and all that. At the end of the day, show me the money. What the hell does that damn thing sound like, right?
What does it sound like? Yep.
At the end of the day, that's why I'm sending you the records, not to, get off into, molecular, whatever. I want to hear the improvements that your system does. And I think one thing that you may inadvertently have mentioned that I picked up on, granted, my setup obviously is, I'm insane, right? So, the small fortune that I have invested in my turntable setup, what strikes me is I will hear these improvements even on an entry-level playback system.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As long as you're not rocking a good old Crosley or something like that.
Yeah, well,
but think about it. I mean, entry-level Riga, entry-level projects with entry-level stuff, a $300 rig, I guarantee you will be able to hear the improvements.
Wow.
And then as your equipment elevates in sophistication and investment, you will hear substantially more, as you would with any source material.
Yeah.
But this is not a service that is specifically geared to the very high end, although we will satisfy their very demanding requirements for what improved sound really is.
Yep. Wow. Phenomenal. So AXPONA, I guess if you're in the Chicago area at the end of October, please do consider stopping by and checking it out. And figure out a way to connect with Steve, even if you're not obviously going to AXPONA, to give this a try. I mean, I really, the reason we're doing this video is because I firmly believe that when I run into something that really is above and beyond what I'm normally used to or what I see, where it steps clearly above, the marketing spin of things, man, I get behind it. I mean, it's like the optical cartridge stuff, right? And we talked about this. It's when I see something that really is like, wow, this is beyond what my expectations were, I want the world to know it. That's why, frankly, I created SonicFlare in this channel, right? Is to share the knowledge, to share the expertise. And, I got to be honest, your service is absolutely knockout. And, I can't wait to send you more records in due time, and for others, most importantly, for others to give you a try and experience it. Any parting thoughts, Steve?
Sure. Yeah, a few. When we talked a bit about the types of people who use the service, this has kind of been a really interesting journey. I've been able to meet, I think, 3 different types, or personas, they call it in the software development industry, 3 different types of record buyers.
Okay.
I see them as hunter, gatherers, and listeners. So think about the gatherer, right? These guys, Danny, and I think we all have components of each type in us. and we kind of act that way based on certain circumstances. Because I know from time to time, I will look at, I'm a completist, right? I have every type, every release, every cover variant, you know, that's your gatherer.
Yeah.
The hunter, think about this guy. You've seen him at record shows or record stores. They love the hunt. They love looking at everything. Yeah. And then when they finally find it, their emotional charge is like the discovery.
Oh my God, I have it. I finally found it.
Right. And then they run home and they put it on the shelf and they may or may not ever listen to it.
And never play it again.
Right. And then that's kind of the way the collector can be as well. You know, they get their emotional charge by looking at their wall or their collection and knowing this is immaculately curated. I have things that nobody else has even heard of. And that's great too.
Yeah.
Where we provide the greatest value is the listener. And that's why we're a good fit. Everything you talk about on the channel, Danny, comes back to the emotional connection that we have with our music. And if you can self-identify as one of these types of record buyers, our service will deliver a great value back for your investment. Collectors, hunters, and gatherers, everybody's welcome because hopefully you do listen to your records as well as curating your collection. But that's also an interesting thing. I get asked, Danny, why can't I go to my local record store and just have them clean it? Some places do that, but they cater more towards the hunter and the gatherers. Yeah, we tend to align more with the high-end, hi-fi system retailers. Yeah, which is why AXPONA is a better fit for us than a record fair is.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. Awesome. Hey, Steve, you know, thank you for your time. This was absolutely awesome. I want to take you up on your offer to take a more deeper dive into the mechanics of your actual process. I'm very curious to hear particularly about, you know, the kilohertz, megahertz, it hurts, it doesn't hurt, of you know, the stuff that you're using, because I think there's a lot of misinformation on the market. And I know that, you know, above all else, the marketing machinery of some of these companies is, you know, amplified 10x. And, you know, I think what I'd love to hear from you, perhaps on the next segment, is kind of like a more deeper dive into, hey, what really matters? You know, what is the process doing? And how is it creating those improvements that you hear? So maybe we can tackle that on the next segment.
That's awesome. And the reason why that's awesome, and I'm happy to do so, is I will spill a lot of my knowledge. And I do that. I will put it out there. There are a few things that I consider intellectual property, which I won't talk about, but it's a pretty small list. In the end, we are an advocate of people taking good care of their records. Yep. And there are always going to be people that won't ship their records and want to clean them at home. Heck, there are even masochists out there that like cleaning them at home. That's fine. No judgment here. But I'm happy to share tips that you can use at home, that you can get better results with the equipment you have. That's awesome. And, you know, at some point in time, if the curiosity gets the best of you, all right, give yourself a break from the vacuum unit and the high-pitched squeal of your ultrasonic machine. Send them in and see what you think. Awesome. That's great. All right, Danny. Well, Steve, thank you so much for your time this morning. Everyone else, thank you for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed already to this wonderful, lovely channel with your lovable host, Danny K, please consider doing so. As you know, Google and YouTube uses this algorithm to figure out how to promote these videos forward, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you all for tuning in. And Steve, we'll see you soon. Cheers. Sounds great, Danny. Awesome. Take care. Bye. Bye-bye. Ah, surprise guest. Yes, I know.